All right, guys, it's Copper Cutlass, and today's video is about my review on the MT2600, and it's also a review, but also how I already have gotten to use it and how user-friendly it is. So I've been playing with it since I got it last Thursday. Our Snap-on guy comes by on Thursday. So just for off the bat, I put it on a Lexus just to see it. Okay, cool. And then I put it on my brother's Volvo. I did a starter on it, and it's got a transmission code, gear selector faulty signal, wheel speed sensor faulty, all kinds of crap. It's an older car, and but they're passive codes because he doesn't have any indicators on. At least I think so. And then Sunday I went over to my buddy's place, and he's got a diesel dog that's been cold starting pretty hard. And we did a bunch of stuff, functions. Earlier I was messing with it. I can't pop up the history on that for some reason. It's a 2000, it's older. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is where the usability for this scanner is actually really, really nice. And I know that, in my mind, Snap-on put this scanner out to compete with like the Top Don and like the Harbor Freight, like Autel, which this one is super user-friendly. I have used the Autel. I'm actually used to the Snap-on scanners, which I'm used to the Solus, the shop that I was at. If you guys have followed along, I've moved recently. I've been there over 3 months now. They had an old Snap-on Solus. Yeah, it was a Solus. And then we had two Bosch launch scanners from Mac. They worked pretty good. Those were also pretty user-friendly. Let you get into a lot of stuff. Now, I am using my shop's account for the Gateway. I believe the only car I cannot get into is late model Nissans. So we got a 2019 Infiniti. And the car got hit in the rear end. I do body work for a living. So sometimes just because you don't see any split or cut wires does not mean that they are not split or cut. And it's not the first time that I've run into this. So we got a 2019 Infiniti Q50. And we got a problem. And it's intermittent. But it would shut off the power steering, the all-wheel drive. It would show malfunctions, key malfunctions. And if you look up this issue, it would typically come up as a chassis control module issue. But looking at the schematics and the lines of communication and how they travel in their paths and everything, I realized that the blind spot monitors correlate with the chassis control module. And what we actually had was two communication wires that were barely touching as far as like the wires. They were split. They weren't cut. They were split to the point where they were touching. But the wrapping, sheathing, whatever you want to call it, on the actual harness was not, it wasn't evident that it was damaged. Today I pulled it off of its studs, and I took a closer look at the wiring, and I did find a little flat spot, and I pulled it apart, and lo and behold, I found it. And I'll put the picture of what the wiring looked like. I've since repaired it, and I'm going to show you what I got, because I did 4 various scans, and I don't think I actually cleared it until I repaired it. So let me show you guys. The first scan, so here we go, 9:12 in the morning today. First scan was, we got a PO500 vehicle speed sensor, torque converter solenoid circuit, CAN communication U100. Keep that one in mind. That's a constant. The P1570 automatic speed control device vehicle speed sensor, intelligent cruise control command valve. Again, another U1001 communication circuit. Vehicle speed signal current. U1000 current, U1000-01 current fault, U1000-01 history fault, it was intermittent, U1000 current code, sun load sensor, the car originally came in with that. Again, another U1000 current, U0415 vehicle speed signal, I'll touch base on that later. U1000 current code, U1000 circuit, U1000, 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 vehicle speed sensor, error, 10,001, CAN communication circuit electrical malfunction, current. Okay, so after this scan, I went in and started unwrapping wires where I found that flat spot. Okay, and I separated the wires, and here's what happened. I haven't cleared any codes at this point, but this is also, it saves every scan, which is really nice. Okay, so we still got a vehicle speed sensor A, TCS circuit, CAN communication, automatic speed control device, intelligent cruise control, purge control, water, air cooler, whatever, transmission. But here's where U1000 history code, okay? Here's where we start to see different things. U1000 0-1 airbag history fault. U1000 CAN mute, CAN absent. U1000 history code. Sun load sensor still there. U1000, that's one code there. I think those had to be cleared. And I'll explain. Body control module, history code, again, on that line of communication. But here we go. Here's where none of these codes were in that first scan for the intelligent cruise control advanced driver system, right? So command error, CAN error, ECM circuit, ABS, TCS, VDC circuit, side radar malfunction, that's right and left, lost communication with side radar, lost communication, side radar, sonar circuit, accelerator pedal. Those were not in the initial scan, and I haven't cleared anything. All I did at this point was separate the wires, okay? All right. So, and again, that U1000 is popping up in like the video, the AV, even in the sonar, okay? And it's changing. This is on the second one, okay? Tire pressure monitor, again, signal error, U1000, history code, laser, history code, again, chassis control, history code. So there was two wires that were line of communication that were barely touching, and I separated them. And this was the second scan here. So we're going to go back. We're going to go into the third scan. And I think on this scan, I had completely separated and taped up everything. Okay. So now we're looking at a TCS circuit, CAN communication circuit, again, but the transmission codes are history here, anti-lock brakes, history, airbag, history, accelerator pedal, failure, CAN mute, absent, but they were generating values once everything was good. And again, I haven't cleared anything just yet. Body control module, history, I think, and if you look at the diagnostics on all data, it gives you all of the fail safes. And I looked, and those two lines of communication go through the chassis control module. So what was happening is it was shutting down a bunch of systems in that chassis control module. So the way I found that out was when I got into the graph for the first thing that stood out to me is the steering wheel angle sensor had an output value of 0. The mile per hour was stuck at 43 miles per hour. It had shut down that system. So when I had my scanner up, I separated those wires and I had the wheel locked all the way to the left, and instantly I saw a spike in the graph, and I knew that was the problem. And then a bunch of lights in the dash disappeared, like the chassis control module fault, all of those indicators. The only indicator that did not go away on its own was the check engine. Obviously, as some of you guys know, some of those hard codes you're not able to clear. So again, advanced driver, assistant system malfunction history code. So this is after I repaired all the wiring, got everything nice and separated, and then it cleared it, and then we went, and then all we are left with is one code, and that's this HVAC for the sun load sensor. We got no other codes. Goddamn, went too fast. Here we go. Sun load sensor, that which the car came in with. And I hope I'm not bugging you guys or bothering you guys or boring you guys, but to me this is awesome because I am no longer at the mercy of a shop scanner. I have my own. And this is where the car came in. I already knew the issue. I put my scanner on it, and you know, the shop scanner is constantly being used, as we do have a lot of cars that come in and leave. Everything gets pre-scanned and post-scanned, and then any other issues. So the shop scanner is constantly being used. And I don't know that scanner enough to get into the functions. But when I went into the Snap-on truck, one of the first things I did was I jumped into he had it in demo mode, but I jumped into seeing what systems I can get into. And it's very simple. Now, you don't have a link bar where you can click on stuff, but when you go into, like, let's say the power steering, you get to scroll just like this, and all your systems will pop up. It will have a graph. The next one will pop up. It'll have a graph. So like the engine RPM, stuff like that. So it was funny that under the engine, I wasn't able to see engine RPM, but in the transmission, the transmission controller, I was seeing RPM. And again, it's just because those two lines of communication were touching each other and crossing voltage. So it was very interesting, but in a short amount of time, I was able to see what was going on. And, again, being able to wiggle the wire, especially after a car that's been in an accident or a collision, impacted anywhere. I went for the area where we repaired, and I started to move the wires, and I saw something jump, and I'm like, that's it. That's a spot. I went back, and it actually did take quite a bit of effort to get it to mimic until I unraveled the wiring, and I found the two bare spots in the wires, and I literally touched them, and instantly on the dash, the chassis control module fault indicator came on, traction control came on, ABS light came on, and then I separated them and they went away. So it was acting like one really big glitch, but it wasn't acting like it wasn't acting normal. So in order to protect things, it was shutting down systems. So like the steering wheel angle, that's actually what I used. That graph is what I used to diagnose and find where that split was. So the price is actually fairly good right now. And I'm not a Snap-on dealer, but as you can see, I do have Snap-on tools at home. I got an old Snap-on box there. I got an old Snap-on cart top there. And my toolbox is a Snap-on, and I got a bunch of Snap-on tools. But I was almost ready to buy the Harbor Freight Autel and, putting it on their credit card for 0% interest. But what Snap-on has going on with this, it comes out to a little over $1,900. Don't know your dealer, don't know your area. But 40 weeks, 0%, 50 a week. And I think for anybody, especially guys who do mechanical work, like if you're charging for, you get paid diag time, this thing would pay for itself if you got your own, or you work in a shop where, you have limited access to a scanner. I know, especially in the collision field, for me, it's become more and more important to have a scanner handy, readily available, ready to go. So I popped on it. I've been playing with it, and today was actually a repair where I got to use it, and it shined, and it had the functions that I needed. So as far from my perspective in the body shop, this is very indispensable. It's very nice to have it. And to take my expertise to the next level, which at the old shop, I had access to all the scanners. I did a lot of diagnostic work. I did a lot of stuff like that. I had a lot of good experience there with that stuff. So here I'm able to carry it over on my own at this new place and rely on myself and be a little bit more self-reliant when these issues come persistent, because sometimes you're at the mercy of some of these mobile diagnostic guys, which they, in the body shop, it's become very common to have these services come out, and sometimes they overcharge. And I think if I had a scanner readily available to me where I could do this type of work, we would have avoided a huge, huge setback, because it was a timely process. Our mobile diet guy spent like 2 days there, and I'm not going to badmouth him because everybody works differently, but he was not able to recreate the problem, and I was able to recreate it. And then once I was able to recreate it, I was able to pinpoint the area, and I went ahead and I found the tiniest of flat spots in there. But sure enough, the wiring was fragged pretty good, and so it just goes to show you. It's very, very valuable tool. And I think for the money, it's very much worth it. I know a lot of guys love the top-down stuff, but what I do love is that anything I've ever had Snap-on, the support has always been good. My wife actually set the scanner up for me because I think because of it was a demo model, it had a couple of, it didn't properly get unlocked. It was a quick deal. I jumped in, got it. He unlocked it, and I think maybe he missed a step, but she called Snap-on. They helped her out, and they helped me get in sync with the account from the shop so that I can get into Chryslers and all that. The only car I cannot get into is, I think, like Benz and Nissan. But again, I'm very happy with this already. It's a very indispensable tool that just, it's going to pay for itself. So it's a no-brainer to me. I am not a Snap-on dealer. I am not a fanboy. I got Mac, I got Cornwell, I got all kinds of tools. I've been doing collision work for almost 20 years, and especially in the last 5 or 6 years, I've found myself doing a lot more initiation stuff for like headlights, modules, and stuff like that. Anything we really cannot get into the ADAS systems. That is one of the few things that we cannot get into. Unless you have ADAS specific equipment, which I don't think I can get into the ADAS stuff with this. I'm not 100% sure. I can get into the system to see it, but I don't know if I can get in there to initiate it and or calibrate it. You usually need like targets and all that stuff. I know how to get all of the baseline stuff, angles and stuff like that. Preset, as some of those procedures are available on ALLDATA, to how to do the initial settings, angles and whatnot, but to properly set it up and communicate the blind spot monitors or radar wave sensors, you do need targets for it to pick up, and I don't have that, and I wouldn't do it either, because then the liability falls on me, and that's where most shops outsource it, because it's easier to pass on the liability to somebody else who has the equipment and is set up to do it, versus a technician who is working on 5 or 6, 7 cars at the same time, and you're rushing it, and you can run into a lot of issues and do it wrong and potentially, leave something off that can hurt somebody. So I hope this, guys, I hope this has steered you in this direction, because for me, I know that I am glad I got this. So on that note, I'll let you guys go. Share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram as Copper Cutlass. And I am just barely scratching the surface with this thing, and I am already very, very, very impressed. So if you guys have watched this long, thank you.